It was 12 years ago that Dead Island 1 came out on the Xbox 360, and I loved it. I was big into it. It was very different. It was all about close quarters, gore, dismemberment, and a zombie apocalypse set on a beautiful holiday paradise island. It was from Techland, and it was pitching a very different direction for a sort of zombie apocalypse. It was less guns, more about exploration and character build. This trailer still gets me firmly in the feels. It still looks really good. The whole thing's in rewind. You saw people putting out the video in forward so you could work out exactly what was going on, and everyone was very hyped for this game. We didn't exactly get what we're looking at here, unfortunately.
Hide your kids, grab your wife, better get out of sight. Voodoo, bitch. Up in the morning to the clear blue sky. Turn up the music when I hop in the ride.
Then 8 years ago, we got well and truly blueballed with this trailer, which is showing a jogger going down what looks to be a sort of LA style promenade. The buildings marry up, you've got the trees, that grass, the seas there on your left. So that was kept in. It was just the fact that they made us wait nearly a goddamn decade before they released this game.
Everybody looking, we'll be walking slow. I'm the bombing about to blow up.
But we're here now, and I'm going to stop moaning and start talking about this game. It's running on the PlayStation 5. It does come out at 4K, and it is 60 frames per second. I've just watched a Digital Foundry video talking about the extra movement in the trees and the sort of current gen additions that we see with this game being rolled out on PlayStation 4 Pro and the 5. Talking of peg frames, I saw a dip in the intro. Some of the intros and cutscenes will be a bit sketchy, but nowhere in the game does the performance become an issue remotely. Jesus Christ, I think it's been a while since I've actually had 60 frames per second at 4K. I remember Remnant from the Ashes doing it and then not doing it, and obviously over on the PC I have to put things at 1080 because of my monitor. So with PlayStation 5 games you normally get 30 frames per second on a quality 4K mode, but with this it's all in. Some of the effects are not crap. It's a very pretty world. There's a lot of address envy going on. These people in Bel Air have clearly got way too much money. But other than that, you do start settling into these next level visuals. They're gorgeous. Some of the stuff that happens with the reflections is a bit primitive compared to some of the other open world games out there, Cyberpunk being one of them. The reflections are a little bit fuzzy and static. There's no ray tracing bouncing around here, and that does detract a little bit, especially in some of the interiors, but it's exterior where this game shines, and of course zombie dismemberment, which we will get to. I've had so many moments of complete joy with this sequel. I've been in my chair thinking, this is what I waited 12 years for. It went through so much weird stuff, I think, with funding and them getting rid of Techland as a developer for this sequel, which hasn't really cost it too much. It's still a pretty damn cool Dead Island game right underneath it all, but there have been some minor changes. This isn't Kew Gardens, this is the back of someone's yard in goddamn Bel Air. It sports cinder, fire and electricity and a bunch of other elements quite well. It's got a lot to do with that intro, introducing you to a plane crash at night that's on fire. There's just flames everywhere. Those trees in the distance, you can see that this isn't a quadruple A game, so to speak, but it's certainly worth 50 quid, I'll tell you that much. Dead Space remake. Okay, enough gorping. Let's look at the damned game, Coop, because you're being fanning around with these vistas for at least 3.5 minutes. It is all about the externals for me. If you've played or been playing Atomic Heart, you know what they've done with this open world game format that, by the way, Dead Island 1 rigidly existed to. This has been carved up a little bit, giving you sort of sections and areas to explore, larger ones, smaller ones. As you get further into the game, they do become larger and you do have more choice, but you're very much funneled at the start, and that wasn't really the message of the first game.
Shit!
I've got to talk about it now. I can barely handle the gore in it. Me, the guy that does horror lists and has to watch the most macabre material 50 to 60 times just on an edit. This was difficult just playing it. Honestly, it's so up close and it's so slow-moed and detailed. I'm going to show you some of the absolutely ridiculously deep cuts and marks you make on these zombies. I don't know if there's need for it. There is need for it. Let's just get back to externals quickly because we are leaving this chapter and heading hi-ho into the zombie gore section of the video. I'm so not back at its beauty. It's brilliant the way that they've laid out this luxury section of Bel Air to just become unraveled, and everyone had their little story and their little setup, and you can see where everything went wrong, the blood trails, and all the stories that are hidden behind a lot of this makeup that makes this slightly less open world that we saw in the first game. Let's talk about that base level combat system first up, because you get character choice, and I'm pretty sure some of the female characters have L1 as a standard dodge. With the male characters, especially the fake fireman guy, his block on L1 as opposed to a dodge becomes extremely important. You can get it buffed and you start getting increased damage if you handle a few blocks in a row. It opens up a kill special on square, which can result in absolute bliss depending on what weapon you're using. There's also really bad things happening to really annoying people, which is always cool in a video game, and you get to see some cracking internet jokes. The developers are very self-aware, always have been, they were in the first games, so there's quite a lot of underlying comedy in here. And talking of underlying comedy, the dropkick is one of the funniest, most satisfying moves you get given in the game. In Dead Island 1, you had to go quite far down a tree, I think, to unlock it, but with this, it's there early doors. And a lot of the kill finisher moves with different weapons turn out to have very different visual outcomes. The dissipation on the zombie jaws and some of their eyeballs popping out on this close quarters stuff, it's like nothing I've ever seen before. When you do major damage on the body, you actually see right inside the rib cage and all these mangled, rotten organs still working. It's blindingly detailed on the zombie front. They kind of are the stars of the show. The dropkick and the zombies, and of course the weapons, which we'll get to, really make this holy trinity of satisfaction. The graphics on that hole in that guy's head, the background you saw behind it, I don't care who you are, you're going to go and buy a PlayStation 5 now. Okay, let's try and keep it together. That brings me on to the element system, which is a lot more in depth than the previous game, and it's actually another one of my favourite additions or angles that they've taken. You can implement electricity, fire, blunt, trauma, or even acid injection on a lot of weapons. That's not anything new for the series, but it's the way that you inject it early and can put a lot more on a lot of different things. Each weapon has like 3 slots, a mod slot and a perk slot, and you can start building on them.
I mean, then look at this thing. I can't imagine a more beautiful thing.
When you break them down, it doesn't cost you the earth. You get a lot of the materials back. So there is incentive to just start getting new stuff, bolting incredibly terrifying bits of nails and electric acid pumps onto the end. It's endless fun. Also, watching the zombies is fun. They just do stuff. This guy didn't even make it over the curb. One of the worst entrances for an enemy NPC ever. Let's start looking at that element system in a little bit more detail, because it works with the electricity on a combustion fire spark front. So if there's oil on the ground and you have an electric weapon, or I think if you just twang the ground with something metal, the spark will ignite everything. That obviously does include yourself, and zombies will not ignore or walk around fire. They'll go straight through it. There's a lot of fun cheesing them into electricity pits or swimming pools that are full of toasters. So much is going through your head when you're fighting these things, with options that sometimes you blindly completely forget to take your health. And that would be, I would say, in the opening 3 hours, the only reason or way you would die, because it's not die hard difficult in that front quarter. The first one was a bit more. If you had more than 3 zombies on pitch, you were in trouble. With this, the crowd control is amazing, and I throw the meat into the acid pool here and are so satisfied with my idea. But the game would not let me gloat for 1 second. I did see a few repeats on zombie design, but they're always wearing something different. It's normally a facial similarity. The variation is very cool, and it starts introducing some real beefcake zombies to you, which require every one of the perks and cool weapons that you've opened up to take down. That brings me on to that card system. It's a little bit like Back 4 Blood, but you don't get them for nothing. You open them up incrementally. They're huge. They give you a blocker buff. They'll give you a massive elemental increase on certain weapons. And you have slots for them. It's quite interesting. You do have a lot to experiment with when it comes to build here. And I'm really looking forward to testing out the other characters. Oh my god, the explosive guys. That slowdown normally occurs at the death of a zombie or an explosive event. Very cool, it helps you get your bearings, and it makes the game look extremely cinematic. They sort of up the blood squirt. I know I wasn't being too complimentary about the game's interiors previously in the video with reflections, etc., but it does actually manage very well with lighting and mist and giving every room a sort of aged and decrepit feel. It's a brilliant journey going almost backwards through all these houses and out the front doors as the last thing, and just seeing how awful this evacuation and ordeal was, with messages and voice notes everywhere and corpses lying around which you don't know are alive or dead, and plus marks for actually having a zombie in the tunnel for once. Let's talk about beefcake and beefcake management, because there is some scary stuff in this game. A lot of weapons will come with a sort of knockdown unconscious meter, which allows you to make foes go down on one knee, getting them ready for some major damage from your hammer. You can also completely dismember particular limbs, just like the Surge 2. You can go after their actual upper body parts so they can't swing at you anymore. It's horrifying. I wanted to mention its transitional changes with day and night depending on where you are in the story or main campaign. Just reviewed Spider-Man 2018 and it does the same thing, and it does allow a bit more tension on mission type if you want to take them into a dark corridor as opposed to having a beautiful sunny day. If you want to add tension or put in something creepy, I like the idea that the developers have that choice to take it to nighttime as opposed to you sitting and waiting at a campfire before you move off into said cave. You've also got these strange things called curveballs, which you can see in the bottom left there, and you can only have 2 equipped, and you're given quite a few. Making decisions on them is very difficult because they change things up massively. You saw me throw that piece of meat into the pool. That's all gone. Now I'm using this grenade and a sort of ninja star. And it also switches out to like a water dousing bomb, which sort of cleanses items. The water is used massively for the conductive properties on electricity traps and clearing pathways, or even getting enemies to behave differently. Some of them might be on fire, or if you douse them with water and then hit them all with an electricity weapon, it will jump to the whole crowd. The ideas are everywhere. Bit of a Bioshock plasmid thing going on there. You get these nice 50s calling cards that when you enter a new area. I like the introduction to all that, and it gives the story a nice chaptered structure, and it's like a retro cool look. It's also taking you to some very interesting locations, film sets. It very quickly moves you out of the hills and into the suburbs, and you start experiencing very different zombie types and slightly more blue collar designs, police, workers, firemen. I like the idea where you can sort of tell a location or a story from the type of zombie that occupy it. This is also a really good example of the element system actually killing yourself. It is quite a dangerous thing if you don't handle it very well. You also start to see a lot more zombie type variation when you get down into the burbs. There's a zombie that's got like a cloud of flies, weird stuff coming out of him. Very cool. First sort of range that you've got to deal with, things start getting a bit more acidic the further down the line you get, but it's really cool to see this dude hanging around the swimming pool. You can fill it up. I was trying to coax them all into an electrical bath, but it didn't happen. I just had to do it the traditional method. Talking of traditional methods, what was that you mentioned about this having some difference in its structure with its campaign? Well, it is quite linear. The missions are quite fetchy, and it isn't really like go out and see what you can see, report back to your base, build your stuff, and see how far you can venture out into that chaotic world. With this, you'll very much go to this location, do this set task there, and you will be roped into that location until it's finished. I don't mind it. It's getting less the further I'm getting into the game, but it was something that was very predominant at the beginning. I may be reading a little bit too much into this, but the two zombies behind this big dude, they get doused with water. One of them is a grenade zombie, and I can't activate his grenade until he dries off because of the combustion. Let's hope that's not made up. As you can tell, I'm really liking this game. The changes on the campaign structure, they don't bother me really. They give it more rich backstory, and you're dealing with quite a few characters. So this is how you kick someone out of your trailer, by the way, my god. And because the free roaming sections of the map that you are put in are so well done and detailed, and so much is lying around on the ground, and there's all kinds of things to look at, pictures on the mantelpiece, different clues, the way the veins are moving on that zombie on the ground there, the lighting still works really well. It does look like a current gen game, more to the point, it plays like a current gen game. Some of its visuals aren't going to be great up against the newest stuff, but that's by the by when you've got zombie apocalypse, epic annihilation around every single corner with some of the best blood, gore, element, slowdown, dissipation mechanics on the market. I think this is this year's top zombie game. It is very different to the Resident Evil 4 remake for me, mainly because we've seen about 18 reproductions of that game, and it's been 12 years.
Oh, not cool.
This and Resident Evil remake would be a hell of a showdown, to be fair, and if you finished them both, give me something in the comments, let me know what you think. That might be a list for the future. And I just wanted to point out this piece of gameplay is with that dodge as opposed to the block, and Cyberpunk and Atomic Heart both have this method of getting out of the way as a first person game, and they've lifted it over to this really well. Feels totally satisfying. So where are the guns, Koo? You've done us a disservice if you're going to show us a zombie game without a single projectile weapon in it. Hold your hollyhocks.
Blown away.
Here's the thing, they have done such a good job with these close quarters, knives, axes, hammers, javelins, scaffolding poles, that when you switch to a weapon or range, you really feel like you're not home and that you want your familiar game model back. The gun is a bit like magic in a mage game. You don't really want to be using it a lot, and those bullets need to be savoured for big bosses, which there are a lot of. But when it's introduced to you, it is damn cool. You have pistols, the ammo isn't as scarce as it was in the first game, but this is a great piece of footage. They've got into that house, they're bloody behind me, and it all just kicks off when I realise what's happened. I end up getting blown backwards out of the windows onto the ground floor by a grenade guy. I mean, stuff doesn't get much better than this. The game is an absolute zombie fanatic's wet dream. It is doing nothing wrong on this game model front. It's beautiful. It's a game that's going to last me the entire year. They've done a great job. I'm so annoyed that Tech Lab didn't get to enjoy this. Dambuster Studios, you have carried that legacy brilliantly. It's a phenomenal game, and it's one of the best zombie reconstruction kits you will get your hands on this year. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I thoroughly enjoyed making it. Patreon is in the link. Click that button, subscribe. What a brilliant turnout, and what a great 12 years it's been. I've been Couch Coop, and as always,